Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Welcome onto the Market Musings podcast, where today Darren Hazelwod, CEO of Panther Metals, is joining me again. So Darren, good to be speaking to you. How are you doing in this within the lowest volume week of the year, from what I've read and what I'm told? So this is the week where literally the lowest volumes across the board on the stock market. So how are you doing on this? It's certainly quiet from my point of view at Stockbox.
Yeah, no, it's good, Mark. That I think everybody's after seeing liquidity coming back. Certainly, the signs are now that good news is starting to be rewarded, especially over the last month or so in London.
Mm-hmm.
And there's indication that's happening in Canada and over in Australia. So I think we're now edging towards the end of this bear market. We've been in this downtrend for probably around 18 months. Every day, there's more copper coming out of the ground. There's more zinc. There's all these critical minerals that aren't being discovered. They're being processed by all the big guys. Everyone's got to replenish this ore that's coming out of the ground, and it's probably pushed things back in terms of discovery for a number of companies, and we're now moving into a positive phase, in my opinion, just based on the macros. So I'm very positive going forward here, Mark.
Are you talking about the bear market generally across the board, or the bear market in commodities, mining sector?
I think more in the exploration, mining sector.
Okay. Yeah.
We're seeing the producers are on some historically low PEs, and that's fed all the way down. And that's despite seeing a fair amount of M&A during the early part of the year as well, and some quite high level M&A. That generally is seen as a bull signal. That hasn't fed through, but certainly in Canada, we've seen a huge amount of additional staking across basically the entire country.
Okay.
During this period, so it tells you that the positioning's taking place, and that people are looking very, very hard at what they're doing and what they've got, and there's quite a lot of positive signals amongst the doom and gloom.
Okay. Well, I think it comes down to, doesn't it, the fundamentals, doesn't it? You can never argue with the fundamentals. And for example, just taking one of the most popular stocks on AIM. I know we're talking about Panther, but of course Premier African Minerals. Everyone knows about that stock, and they're widely on Stockbox quite a lot. They've had some small problems getting their plant up and running, as you would expect in any sort of ramp up of a mining operation, particularly prior to doing any major DFS or those kind of studies. But yet their off-taker, CanMax, they need lithium. There's no questions about it. They have an obligation to Ford, their customer, who need lithium for the production of batteries for the automotive industry. So, despite the sort of elbowing and strong-arming and from both sides, really, ultimately, the goal is the same. We need your product, and we need you to buy it. And look what's announcements just in the last couple of weeks, the amount of money that company's been able to raise, both from their offtake provider plus from the market, from institutions. And it's because the demand is there, isn't it? Ultimately, you can't change that demand. So compelling projects that have those needed commodities, or indeed, even who have the slight hope of making that discovery, they're going to be in the eyes, aren't they, of private investors, but also the big boys as well.
Absolutely. I think George has had to do what he's got to do to get this facility up and running, and lithium's a great talking point. It's kind of been the one shining light in the sector over this sort of extended bear market. And what it does highlight really with lithium is I don't think lithium is a as a fundamental product is difficult to find or have. But lithium's problem is a lack of processing, and anyone that can get ahead of that curve is having their day in the sun. And George and Prem are proving that, and he's been willing to really put his neck on the block to push through to make sure that the Premier Africa are ahead of that curve in terms of processing, and as a result, he's getting his rewards with the financing that he's after, and that shows it. But this is going to ring true across the entire sector as time goes on, especially in the in this drive to net zero.
Yeah, this drive to net zero is going to literally be the driver, isn't it? This green metals. I mean, you can see it everywhere. I read somewhere, well, it depends how much of conspiracy theory you want to be, but during the COVID pandemic, when all the media was all you had in your face was all the COVID stuff, and you had to go and get vaccinated, there was all this, like it or hate it, all this propaganda being put in your face all the time. And I read somewhere that the next thing to be pushed on the general public is net zero, and it's climate change. And that was 2 years ago. I sort of read that some analyst had said that. And here we are, 2023, and what do we see almost daily basis on the major news outlet? It's about climate change, and you've got carbon credits. There's a new company coming on the stock market where you can trade in carbon credits as a private investor. It's taking it's been locked in the hands of the kind of the big companies at the moment. I think the next big thing is clearly going to be net zero carbon credits. And of course, the commodities that are going to drive that. And you time that with typical cyclical nature of this sector that we all know about. The mining sector is very cyclical. Then this is going to be the major driver for driving in prices and demand of these commodities. And I think that this sector could almost become as sexy as tech. Apple, Tesla, or even the crypto craze. And I think I could almost see the next. Well, it's going to happen. The next big thing is net zero, and we're going to see all these experts come out, new profiles on Twitter talking about copper grades, gold prices, all these things. That's how I see what's going to come. And again, I come back to Alexander Starhill, the podcast I did with that commodities trader in Switzerland. Be one of the greatest times to live in this sector. We have to create the investment of 6 United States of America in the next 10 years if we're going to go down to net zero.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about all those companies you've mentioned, not one of those companies can operate without the commodities that we're out there to discover, develop, and ultimately mine. And in Canada, we've seen the Canadian government bring in the CMETC, which is the critical minerals exploration tax credit.
Okay,
that's 30% for investors that are investing into critical minerals. Governments don't start giving away money unless they're desperate for capital to inflow into that sector.
Yes.
And you're seeing that across the board. We've seen in America the development of their critical minerals. Australia, it's basically everywhere. And you're absolutely right that this industry is heading towards its day in the sun, and that day in the sun is going to last for a considerable period.
Oh yeah.
I think that there'll be people questioning why we're not there already, and I must admit I've been ahead of the curve on that, and had to just ease off at a company level to make sure that we still have a company intact that all of our investors can benefit from. And that, I think that's been driven largely by the downturn in China. And you've seen a softening in some of the prices. And S&P last week, I was on a podcast with them, that they're forecasting basically supply neutral in copper and nickel over the next 2 years. And
supply neutral. So you mean
so supply and demand are about level. And but then that's when the real supply issues start to really bite. So, but to take full advantage of that, you've got to be in the explorers now.
Oh yeah.
And with Panther, we've had all different opportunities within what we've got. But the fact is that we don't know what we're potentially giving away. And for us to get the biggest bang for our buck, as long as we're in a position that we can control our corporate structure, and that's what we've done, it means that everybody benefits from the upside. And now's the time to go out there and really look at your investors, not your traders. Your traders in the market are always going to have their day in the sun, be it on whatever stock that may be, and they've got a different agenda. So, and that's where people need to be careful that they're not listening to traders who have got a different agenda to their own when they're looking to invest. So, and traders are just looking for news flow and liquidity to get in and out, and that's fine. We all need them, and they'll have their day in the sun with Panther. But what we've got to do as a corporate is make sure that we've got investors in the business and just let the traders do their thing. But don't mix the two up, because it's very easy to do that in the days of social media and comments and boards. But no, as a business, we are very well structured to take advantage of what's coming. And once I see a market that's rewarding success, that's when we're able to start pushing forward again, because we've got something to protect. And we've got something to protect into a market that is undoubtedly heading, in terms of where it's in today, it's heading to the stratosphere.
Well, I think it's very important what you mentioned there before we just go and talk about how Panther are positioned for this. Of course, the CMETC that you mentioned, the Canadian government tax credit element, but also the United States government literally are throwing money at mining companies, compelling mining companies. I think Golden Metal Resources, for example, with their tungsten project in Nevada, actively pursuing funding from the government. So when governments are putting money at stuff, you know that they're desperate for that particular thing they want to do, or they want to revive that sector, as we saw in 2008 with the construction industry. So whichever way you look at it, if governments want to revitalise the economy, or they want to protect their secure supply of these metals, it's clearly they're putting the money where their mouth is. Clearly. You said you wanted investors in the business. You will get traders, obviously, but you want investors, and now is the time to invest, obviously, before valuations have been realised. You say you're well structured for what's coming. In what way are you well structured, would you say?
Prime, the first focus has always got to be your asset base. And we are constantly reviewing our assets, making sure that we've got the right assets, making sure that they're the assets that can deliver that 20, 40, 60 bagger that investors are looking for, and they should be looking for that with the risk capital going into this industry. I look at where we're at, the fact that we haven't issued a share in this market. Our last raise was at the very early August of 2022, where we issued stock.
But that's important for you, isn't it? From speaking to you before, that you don't want to issue, you don't want to dilute existing shareholders.
No, we're gonna have to. That's an inevitable part of the process. But you have to know that you're diluting into a market that has the opportunity to reward those investors. And that's the critical point. Now, what we've seen over the last eight or 9 months is a market that's using any positive news as a liquidity event. And when you're in that cycle, you can either become part of that cycle, or you can actually say, well, now isn't the time for us to be issuing stock, because it's going to be at a heavy discount. It's going to have a whole basket of warrants, and before you know it, you've doubled your shares in issue. Panther, where we stand, we could go up to roughly our COVID highs during the bull market in the COVID era, and we'd still have a market capitalisation of around £15 million as it stands today, approximately. And that's nothing, in fact, when the market starts to understand that we've got the discovery at Wishbone, it's now a case of building that out. We're a business that's discovering that the next mining district in Canada, and I'm happy to go into details. We've spent huge amount of time on this over the last few months, as we've been a little bit quieter in terms of people on the ground. And I can look at other companies, and and everybody has to operate in a way that suits them. There's no right or wrong. But a lot of companies out there, Mark, if they were to, in this sector in London, if they were to hit their COVID highs, now they'd need to have market capitalizations of 60 to 90 million pounds. And these are micro cap juniors, the same as Panther. And we haven't played that game because we genuinely believe that we've got something to protect. And I'm also cognizant of existing shareholders, and not just that, what we've seen in the future. Now, if I didn't feel that we genuinely had something there and we had genuinely had something to protect, the truth is that we would just dilute and make our own lives a lot easier, because it's an industry that historically people have said is news hungry, and you must feed this market. You have to feed the market. You have to produce news. You have to tell the market exactly what you're up to. And I would probably turn that and say, actually, the greatest success stories out there are the ones that are not delivering constant news. They're the ones that are delivering real news, fundamental news that's changing that business on the upside. And that's what we've got to look for. London's been shy of discoveries for some time. Mm-hmm. And we've got to make sure that as a company, as an industry in London, that actually our focus is going now towards discoveries, because they're the ones that are really going to move the needle. You're always going to have your spikes in stocks, mm-hmm. But to genuinely create the industry and win back the confidence of investors, we have to make sure that we are making discoveries, and that we're bringing investors along on the journey. And within that process, you're also going to give the traders their day in the sun, and that's fine as well. But you're never going to get a trader into something that where you want in investors. They're different sides of the same coin.
Well, you talk about discoveries there and wanting to get some good discoveries, particularly in the London markets. But you also mentioned earlier that you've got a discovery there at Wishbone. So would you say you've already achieved that objective a little bit with that project?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So Wishbone itself, it's a VMS system. It's a polymetallic deposit.
So you've discovered a VMS polymetallic deposit effectively.
Yes.
If you were to define what you've discovered.
Yes. And these deposits are generally copper, zinc, silver, lead rich. Mm-hmm. So we're right at the heart of the discovery of critical minerals. Everything about us is critical minerals. Now, what is known now, since our program that we announced the results of this discovery in early February, we've got a stretch that goes from south of Wishbone and this travels approximately 17 kilometers north. Now, within that band, you've got anomalous copper that is in the thousands of percent higher than the sort of background level of copper out on an average in Ontario. The background level of copper in Ontario is about 25 parts per million in soils.
Okay.
And in the sediments. Now, in this area, we go as high as 800 parts per million, and a huge range in between. But many above 500. Now this runs for about 17 kilometers. Now the theory is that this could be caused by erosion, so that the rocks have been eroded down, and that's died. Now we actually would say now for certain that that's not happening. That this is a leaching process out of existing rocks that are in the area, and the reason is how this is distributed, because very quickly to the east and west along this band, the copper in soils drops back to the background average in Ontario. That's 17 kilometers. Within that, we now know this system is mineralized. So we've also got the survey area, which we drilled one hole into that last year. We now know that for certain that's another VMS. We got anomalous zinc and copper in that one hole. We know this information. Survey anomaly is 3 kilometers long. It's half a kilometer wide. Then even further east, you've got Ottertooth, which we haven't drilled to date, and that's another one. Now with what's known on the other areas, we're almost certain that's another VMS. Panther Metals are building the next VMS camp and discovering and unwrapping the next VMS camp in Canada. And that's a major statement for any business. And you can start to understand why we've held tight in this market. But there's going to be kind of 4 things that's going to change in terms of how we go about our next steps on the ground, and it will be focused on Wishbone. We know we've got the nickel and the graphite are awkward, but that's going to be pretty much for another day.
Okay.
And the first thing we're going to do is going to be the size of the program. So up to date, we've drilled at Wishbone. We've drilled 5 holes in total. Now within that, we hit 42 meters of contiguous massive sulfide, and that tells you in these systems that it's massive. It's a huge system. The way that these systems work, for it to get to 42 meters of contiguous massive sulfide, it had to have been in operation. That the processes, the hydrothermal events, must have been happening over an extended period, a long time. Actually, we knew that from our first program. What we never knew at Wishbone is, does it contain mineralization? And nobody's found that. Dome in the 70s, BHP. We now understand why they haven't, and I'll come to that. But everybody's loved this area, but nobody's really known, does it contain commercial mineral? We now know it does. And that was from our program last autumn that we announced early February. But as a result, we've reviewed all that data. We've done a super deep dive into Sturgeon's Lake, which is our sister greenstone belt, about 70 kilometers to our west. Now, Jim Franklin, who's one of the most respected VMS experts globally, has always said that Bonga is the sister greenstone belt to Sturgeon's Lake. Sturgeon's Lake had 5 producing mines, ultra high grade zinc, copper, silver, 19 million tons, all produced commercially. And there's points from there that we've discovered that haven't been applied to date to Wishbone. But so the first thing we're going to be doing is, as I say, is doing a bigger program. So we'd be looking at about 15 holes.
So this is looking at the next activity program, which you want to do in the autumn, is it?
It won't be this autumn. We've got we've got things we want to put in place to make sure that this business is in super great shape.
Okay.
To deal with the oncoming discoveries that we think is going to come from this. We'd be looking at two holes potentially in February, and that would be. And the reason they'll be in February is that we want to drill on the lake, on the Wishbone Lake itself.
Okay. And need to wait till it's frozen to do that. Obviously.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And within these holes, see, we've got we want to do downhole EM. So the first thing is it's going to be we're looking at 15 holes at Wishbone, but we're going to drill vertically. Is the second point. So as it stands at the moment, and across the board, generally people drill at approximately 45 degrees, which 45 degrees you drill. If you imagine this pen's drilling at 45 degrees. So if you're drilling a 200-meter hole, your actual depth from the bottom of your hole to surface is around 100 meters. Well, we're going to still drill 200 meters, but we're going to now drill vertical. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the discoveries that were made at Sturgeon's Lake, all of them were between 140 and 160 meters in depth. If you're drilling at 200 meters vertically, as I say, at 45 degrees, you're only getting to 100 meters in depth. And that's been repeated by just about every company, including Panther, up to this point. And it's actually been proved to have been the wrong thesis.
Okay.
Also, we believe that the system's turned about 90 degrees. So VMSs form vertically, like so. But over the years, with the folding and what else goes on within the geological structure, we believe this system's turned about 90 degrees. So that means actually your footprint of the VMS deposit is potentially huge.
Okay.
If you're drilling at 45 degrees, your chances of hitting that system are mitigated. If you're drilling vertically, you're going to drill straight through the system.
So you're planning to effectively drill straight through the system?
Yes, we're going to drill vertically. But also we're going to do every hole will have downhole EM.
Okay.
Now that's electromagnetic. So we're going to get a picture of a greater depth and in more detail of the entire area, which is going to help define our drill program. And our drill program will be flexible. So we'll be willing to change the program as we go along to make sure that we're getting right into the areas that really matter.
So this is 15 holes in total you'll be planning to drill. Over what sort of time frame would you be looking? You said you want to get 2 done over the lake area in February. Would you be looking to get the rest done throughout 2024? Or is it just as and when?
No. I think you'll be looking at April, May of 2024. So we'll go in late Feb. That's the plan. Listen, all this is dependent on permits. And it's also dependent on agreement with the local First Nations, which is now super important. Because
very
again,
important.
It's about This is all about protecting what we potentially have and what we believe we now have. And when you have nothing, your reasons for protecting it are less. But now we've got to make sure that we've crossed every T and we've dotted every I.
I mean, are you starting the process with First Nations? Because I think the earlier you can start them, the better from talking to.
We're a long way down the line on that.
Okay.
I would say that over the autumn that there's going to be 4 events that are very positive for the company, and one of those would be an agreement with the local First Nations on Abonga.
Okay. And what would be the aim, Darren, of the drilling program going into starting in February, going into April, May time? I mean, you said you think you perhaps got the next VMS camp in Canada. So
we have got the next.
You're saying you have got the next.
There's no. These discoveries have been made now.
But why does the market not reflect it then? Is it understand it? Do they need to see something more like a standout grade or something? I mean, what can you do to? I mean, first of all, what is your aim? To prove it up further?
Yeah.
Okay.
Simply. So the way the market's reaction to Panther up until now has been kind of focused around where's the money coming from? They've got to do a massively dilutive raise.
Okay.
So we're gonna hold you back as long as we can, and that's really is the market's choice. But I've got the business to this point now where I can actually take that out of the market's hands
because you've raised 200,000 through.
We've raised 200,000. We have other opportunities coming up through the autumn, which will prove this. These have all been worked on over the last few months, and it's going to mean that you're never going to see this massive dilutive event that the market was expecting. And a common theme, and also it's down to educating investors and the public now into what we now have, what we see, why we see it, where things haven't worked for people in the past in these areas, and why this is such a huge opportunity. This is ignoring the Dotted Lake and what's going on over there with Glencore. It's ignoring Manitou Lakes and the fact that that area is just super, super hot.
I mean, are you ignoring them? Are you going to focus purely on Wishbone, or you just...
We're focusing on developing the next VMS camp in Canada. These things will still be worked. In fact, there's going to be boots on the ground at Manitou Lakes this autumn. We've got drill applications in at Dotted Lake, and we're waiting for those to come through.
Okay.
And once those are all complete, they'll then be slotted into the program, and we'll work them accordingly. But there are not many companies globally that can say they're embarking on doing what we're doing on the back of the discoveries we've made.
Okay. So I mean, is it fair to say that Wishbone would be the flagship project?
Bonga is the flagship area, and within that flagship area, within that developing VMS camp, Wishbone is our core focus going forward.
Okay.
That's on the back of the discoveries made, and then we would be looking to move over to survey an otter tooth, obviously within that. But this is all about the critical minerals. It's all about the tax advantages within Ontario at various levels, be that flow through, be it the CMETC, and we're in a location that BHP, Dome, everyone loved. Everyone drilled too shallow with hindsight, but hindsight's a marvelous thing. And we're able to now remove that hindsight and actually get on with the discoveries that we now know this area yields.
Yeah.
And we're a 3 million market cap, and that's probably partly reflected on our comms and how we've gone forward. But in a market that's punishing communication, that's punishing progress, I haven't played that game. But now you'll start to see the advantages going forward. And we're funded into 2024 as well now, without issuing a share. And like the warrants linked to this CLN, they're only going to become live if we're successful. So we're beautifully set. We truly are.
Okay. With the aim at Abonga to prove up further this next VMS camp and potentially want them to attract more interest there, to potentially take things a particular... I mean, I guess the whole area, if it's a whole camp, it's far too big for Panther to handle on their own. Would you look to exploit one particular area? I mean, we're talking quite far away in the future now. But I mean, what would you like to... Aside from proving it up further, what would be the exit, if you like, or the end ambition?
Ultimately, we're an explorer, and the end game for us is a buyout.
Okay.
And I've gone on record as saying that there are big eyes watching what we're doing, and there's a good reason that they're there. This is a greenstone belt that's offered a huge amount without anybody being able to actually discover what we believe that the rocks are telling them there. When you drill when you look at the Sturgis Lake historic holes, those drill holes are the first 100 meters of those drill holes. They're almost a mirror image of what we've been getting within the drill holes at Wishbone, and what BHP got in the drill holes at Wishbone, what Dome got in the drill holes at Wishbone. People know what this greenstone belt should contain. We now know through our drilling that it does contain the commercial mineralization. We know we've got a span of 17 kilometers going north, south to north, slightly offsets to the east. We've got the the survey area, which is hugely prospective on its own. All these should be individual targets. And as you say, this is an area that's got scale. It's got everything a major would want. And that's why we've done what we've done there, and why we originally did what we did in terms of putting the whole package together. This has always been the plan. Now what we're able to do is execute on that plan without killing our existing investors. And that's the hard route we've chosen.
Okay.
I could have easily taken the route of just dilution. That's why we're on the market. That's what we have to do. Yes, we have to do that, but I haven't taken it and just issued confetti. I've been cognizant of the market, and now we're beautifully placed because there are things that can happen going forward that will prove that, and we then go to work. So it's a genuinely exciting time to be in Panther. And now, after all the hard work over the last 4 years, reshaping the business, bringing in these assets, divesting other assets, people are going to start to see the benefits of that, and hopefully that's going to be in a more bullish market as we move forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Darren, for your time today, having this chat. It's been very interesting for me to learn a bit more about where the focus is going to be, particularly there with Abonga and this next VMS camp in Canada. I'm very intrigued to hear that and see how that goes. So we can look forward, hopefully, to catch up again in the not too distant future as a couple of things come to fruition with regards to First Nations and information on funding, etc., before you get into the exploration. But it's been a nice talking to you there today.
That's great. Thanks a lot for your time, Mark.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Fairbairn and Russell. Tune in next time.